Alright, picture this. You're 35 years old. You have a wife who you haven't felt a connection with in 5 years and you barely even talk to. You got 2 kids who are 5 and 6 years old that you say you love, but you know that deep down they killed the lost motivation that you had for changing the direction of your life, and they just think of you as someone who buys them stuff sometimes. Somewhere in the last 10 years, you lost the version of yourself you used to be. You wake up every single day at 7 a.m. to drive to your dead-end office job, where the only person you talk to is the janitor who tries to make small talk with you whenever he's around, but it's always uncomfortable for you because you don't even know what to say to him anymore. And you dread him saying hi to you every day, even though that might be the only moments in the whole day where you talk to someone who seems like they want to talk to you. You clock out of your job at 5 p.m. and drive an hour home to find your kids broke something else, or your wife needs money for more yoga classes, or wherever the fuck she goes at night, but you don't even care anymore. You sit in the living room in your chair and watch TV and just wait for yourself to get tired so that you can go to sleep, so that you don't have to deal with this mediocre existence that you feel trapped in. Then an ad comes on the TV. It's for a Ford Mustang. You see a middle-aged dude who looks just like you, going 120 miles per hour on his way to work, drifting into the parking lot. You start to daydream. Imagine flying down the interstate on the way to work every day, blasting music you haven't enjoyed since you were a kid, then drifting into your shitty office job and doing donuts in the parking lot. But then you think, damn, what if that was me? Everybody would love me, and that janitor would think I'm so cool, and I would get respect from my colleagues, and my wife might respect me more because she will think I'm more masculine. You think buying a muscle car will suddenly fix every issue you have in your life and bring excitement back to everything, and this is what people call a midlife crisis car. And this is a trap that many middle-aged people will fall into. It is why people call Corvettes midlife crisis cars, because it's half of their owners. And it's mainly American muscle cars that fall victim to this, because people know what they are, and people want the status from the people that know what they are. Most people won't buy a BMW M3 or Mercedes C63S for a midlife crisis car, because they're not as well known, and they can't get as much approval from everyone. Cars like Mustangs, Corvettes, Camaros, and Challengers are perfect midlife crisis cars, because they demand attention, they are cheapish, and they are fun as fuck to drive. All things a depressed 40-year-old is craving. So you go to bed, and you start looking at Mustangs in your area. You watch videos about them. You look at your bank account, and you start thinking about how much you can afford. It's just a thought, but you're also considering it. The next day, on your way to work, you're going about 60 miles per hour in your Camry. Just then, a Mustang pulls up next to you. Driving it, you see a 20-year-old, and for a moment, you're not just looking at him. You're looking at the younger version of yourself, with his whole life ahead of him, with no wife or kids to worry about. The 20-year-old self that could do anything. The Mustang then downshifts, and steps on it, and it takes off. And you hear the most masculine, over-the-top exhaust note ever, and you just know that everybody on the road thinks he's a badass. You want a Mustang even more now because of a thing in psychology called the possible self. You think, if I buy that car, I'm not a 35-year-old loser anymore. I'm a young, hip dude with a Mustang. You're not focused on the car itself, but what the car can make you. Whole time you're at work, you're thinking about the car, how it shined, how it sounded, and how it made you feel just seeing it. You even tell the janitor about how you want to buy one. On the way home from work, you see a Ford dealership, and in the front of it is a bright red Mustang. You pull in, go inside, and greet the salesperson, and start talking to him about the Mustang. And then out of the blue, he asks, do you want to go on a test drive? And this question made the whole thing just so much more real, and you start to think about if this is a good idea or not. But then you feel your phone buzzing, and you take it out of your pocket and you check it. It's your wife calling, probably wondering where you are. You hesitate for a second, and put the phone back in your pocket, and look at the salesperson and say, get the keys. You feel a rush of adrenaline waiting for him to come back. He pulls around the front with the car and gets out and opens the door and says, get in. You hop in and put the car in drive and start driving to the interstate. You can feel everybody looking at you. You have the windows down. This isn't even your car yet, but you feel proud. Then you get on the interstate and the salesperson tells you to hit it. You don't know much about sports cars, so you just step on it and it kicks you back and it feels like you're teleporting with more torque than anything you have ever experienced. Then you get back to the dealership. You're not even thinking anymore, and you just sign the papers to your new car and give them the keys to your old one. What you don't realize yet is that the dopamine you get from anticipating something is often far greater than the dopamine you get from getting something. That's why when you order something on Amazon, it's fun watching it get closer, but then when it arrives, you don't really care about it. This purchase also felt like a reset button to your life, marking a point where the old you dies and the new you begins. This is something a lot of people fall trapped to. Like, I'll start working out once it gets nice out. You get a bunch of dopamine from saying that, and it might work for a little bit once it's nice out, but you're really just moving the harsh truth that you need to establish habits to change to a simple moment that will just magically snap you into a better person, which 99% of the time doesn't happen because you don't have the willpower. But anyways, you start the Mustang up and drive it home, and on the way home, you hit 150 miles per hour on the interstate as the exhaust goes crazy behind you, and you feel 20 years old again. You pull into your neighborhood and into your driveway, and your wife is there because you haven't been answering her calls. But her frown turns into amusement after you get out and she asks what this is. You tell her that you've always wanted a Mustang and tell her to get in for a ride. You then take her and the kids for a spin around town with the windows down, listening to music, and everything feels complete. You rev it at everyone you see and bask in the attention. The next next day at work, you hit a donut in the parking lot and the janitor sees it. He comes up to the car and daps you up and you feel amazing. This is the honeymoon phase of the cycle of buying a midlife crisis car. You shift your source of attention and validation onto the car. Every time you rev it and everybody looks at you, you feel like you were seen and validated. All the people asking you about the car in your head are people asking you about yourself, and your identity becomes interchangeable with it. This is a bad trap to get into, because what happens if you lose the car or get a different one, or you don't get the right type of attention? You're going to feel terrible. This is why people like looks maxers are really soft, because they put all of their confidence into their vanity, and when that's threatened, they go crazy. And for midlife crisis cars and looks maxers, both of them put their masculinity on the line of having a masculine looking car or body or face. But what if you get into an actual fight, or someone tries to rob you and your wife? Suddenly that thin facade you had of the illusion of being masculine goes away, because you falsely correlated the car too close to your identity. In reality, most people you rev the car at think you're annoying. It can easily see or assume it's the code for lack of attention or confidence in your manhood. And I don't want to sound like a Karen when I say all of this, because I own a Mustang myself with a loud exhaust on it. The only difference is I only rev it when someone's asking me, or I'm going under a bridge, because I want to hear it, not because I want people to stare at me or give me validation for spending a few grand on an impractical car. After a few weeks of driving the car, you start to get used to it. This is because your baseline happiness is increasing and you're building a tolerance to the excitement you get from driving the car. This is called hedonic adaptation. This is the same reason people who smoke have to keep smoking more and more to feel the same high, because to them, the same amount just feels like less and less. So what do? You start driving faster. You race people on the interstate. You start posting your car on Facebook in hopes that people comment on it and you can get some easy dopamine. You are starving for other ways to get attention and excitement from your car. You aren't a car guy who knows how to make the car go faster, or what a track is, or what car meets are. You are simply a guy with a sports car to cope, and you are running out of ways to keep this high going. You start to fall back into how you were feeling before the car, and that's your biggest fear. One day you get on the interstate, and you see a Corvette flying down the road, so you speed up to catch him, and both of you know what happens next. Y'all both slow down to 40 miles per hour and honk 3 times, and then race. Y'all make it to about 160 miles per hour, and the Corvette barely beats you. You feel hurt, like your masculinity was just threatened. Just then, you look behind you, and you see red and blue lights. The police had caught y'all racing, and the Corvette starts to pull over. And in that moment, you decide you're not losing twice, and you're going to show the Corvette owner what type of man you are. You start accelerating away from the police, and now they are chasing after you. The flight or fight response you just felt gave you so much dopamine that it overridden any logic or reasoning that you had. This was just like in the movies, and you felt like this was the peak of your life. But then you hear a beeping noise and check your dash. One of your tires just blew out. Then you remember all the burnouts you did and how your overindulgence and begging for attention has led to this moment you are at right now. The car then starts to spin out and you think you're about to die. You wake up a few moments later in the ditch of the interstate with 5 cop cars around you. The high was fully over. The truth is, a lot of people run from the police for fun, because adrenaline is that good of a feeling and it's addictive. But people who do it regularly do also know that it's a bad idea to run in the daylight, and it's also a bad idea to run with bald tires, obviously. You had a disconnect from who you thought you were and who you actually were, and that's called ego. And side note, I've always noticed that it's the slower cars trying to go the fastest, because they're trying to cope with the fact that their car's slower than the people with the actually fast cars don't need to go fast because they know that their car's already fast. It's the same thing to buy a sports car or a lifted truck to cope with low testosterone. It's a few days later now, and now you're out of jail, and the Mustang is totaled, and it's sitting in the garage, and you're watching TV. The lawyer says you will most likely get a year of probation, on top of 15 grand in legal fees, and your wife won't even speak to you. She's too busy on the phone with another lawyer, asking for a divorce on the grounds that you're a danger to your kids. You overhear her on the phone in the other room and turn up the TV just so you don't cry. Then the same Ford commercial comes back on, and you sit there in resentment of yourself as you watch the same ad that led you down the road that you thought would fix your life, but only made it worse. You don't want to sell the car because that admits defeat, which is also known as the sunken cost fallacy, but you know that that ruined your life. But the car was never the issue. It was the lack of purpose and direction in your life, and realizing you chased becoming a person you were never meant to be or wanted to be. And you weren't chasing the car, you were chasing the version of yourself that you think you lost with time. The version of yourself that's 20 and doesn't need a Mustang to prove your self-worth. I don't think that buying a sports car is a bad idea if you're into cars or simply want something to enjoy driving around sometimes, because honestly sports cars are cool and they can be a symbol of freedom, but just don't fall into the trap of thinking they will fix you. You can't fix internal problems with external solutions. Thank you and subscribe.